Yeah, so my name is Steven Muragwa Nduwayo Gapara. All those are my names, but you can go with Steven because it is always easier for many people out here in Canada. I mean, in the US as well, because other names are very hard to spell, and I really don't complain about it because I understand. So I am a guy who is involved in a lot of things, whether you look at it in the activism, speaking about the issues that are happening in Congo or the wars, the conflicts, the tribalism or whatever. And also, other than that, I work in finance. I own two businesses, one being a tea business. It's a very interesting one. And the other one is a cleaning business. On top of that, I am part of an organization called RPH that helps refugees worldwide. So I am a guy who is from a very big family in my house. We are eight, and I am the first. We are eight kids. I am the first, and I have two parents. They still both alive and love them very much. Anyway, that's my story, and I really appreciate having this conversation with you.
Yeah. So to kind of dive right in, the Democratic Republic of Congo is possibly like the most rich nation in the world with their resources, with their mining possibilities. But sadly, like one of the worst colonizations in history happened with the Congo from the Belgians. And the Congolese people have lived and fought through forced labor, disease, torture, genocide, wars, and they're still fighting strong and standing strong. Um, and I just was curious because this is a nation in a conflict that doesn't have like the most media attention. And you'll see the occasional like hashtags and um, a few occasional times on the news and see it on social medias again with hashtags, and people talking about it. But the real driving forces of this topic are people like yourself that are actively talking about it daily and going into it. So what do you think, at least to like the Western media, is the reason people don't talk about the Congo too much?
So, I think that that's the biggest issue about this. I don't know if they don't talk about this issue because they're complicit, which is also something that can happen. Because looking at the statistics, how many people who have already died, and looking at the wars and the displacement people right now, we are around 8 million people displaced internally in the Congo. Congo has a large Congo has a large population living outside of Congo as refugees. I was a refugee myself for over a decade. And over than that, around 25, the last time I checked, it was around 20 million people right now need humanitarian aid because they don't have where to sleep, they don't have food. Looking at those kind of statistics and looking at what Congo is going through right now, and then looking at the people who were supposed to report about the situations like that happening around the world, not doing anything about it, it really creates a lot of questions. Why aren't they talking about it? This, what's more important that they're talking about than what's happening in Congo, in Sudan, or in Palestine? Because if you look at it, they're not covering it. And that's one thing. And also the way they cover it, even when they decide to do it, saying that as a reporter or as a journalist or as someone who's really trying to help, you have to know the cause of it, of the problem first. Because reporting that 25 million or 8 million or 10 million people have died in Congo due to the war, but without really highlighting the cause of it and how people can help to end the war, I think it's not what we need in right now in Congo, because saying what's happening without preventing it from keeping to like continuing to happen is a big problem. Again, to this day, I don't understand, and I really don't know why the Western media still don't cover what's happening in Congo. It's not just Congo, it's also Sudan. when they were actually supposed to do it, because it's one of the biggest crises that are happening in the world right now, but the coverage is very low. And as activists who were supposed to also raise awareness about what's happening in Congo, some of us have already been taken with the donation thing, where they're more focused about generating money to help refugees, to help displaced people, which is very good. I really appreciate it. But when you look at it in the long term, we need that right now, but they're not really thinking about the long term, because people really don't have what to eat, and we need to help them eat, because if they don't eat, they will continue to die. That's one thing. But reporting or asking for donations without really talking about the issue that's causing the crisis that push people to be in the situation they're in right now, I think is doing it wrong, because we need to end what's causing people to become displaced or to become refugees, where they need donations from other people to help them. And to do that is to really speak up against, whether it's armed groups who are fueling these conflicts, whether it's other countries that are fueling these conflicts, that whether it's regular people like politicians who are fueling the conflicts we have in Congo. So there are many layers to what's happening in Congo that no one can really cover, but we can do our best. I mean, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of layers of that, Nick, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
to start, my first thought is, of all the things you mentioned, we know about the conflicts, especially in Eastern Congo. But then there's the business interests, be it countries or just large multinational businesses that are also taking advantage of your country, right? And the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you feel is the biggest cause, as you named the different causes? What if you have to dig down, what are the top one or two causes that are really? I mean, we're thinking it's a conflict. You know, obviously the armed rebellion with that group.
Yeah.
It's called the March 23rd movement, or the M23. But there's more than that, right? So tell us what you think is causing it, the root cause.
So the biggest cause is the division of our population. And when I talk about that, it's the discrimination within ourselves. Because when people are unite and people are speaking the same stuff, or they're fighting the same fights, the situation becomes easier. It's like in many other countries in Africa, they're being oppressed like Congo is being oppressed. The reason it's not worse like it is in Congo is because they somehow have a way of handling their problems in unity. But in Congo, we have a discrimination problem. So we have many tribes. In Congo, we have three groups of or four. They can be many actually, because we keep receiving more population in Congo. But we used to have four groups of people. We have Sudanese people. That's just how they call it, but they call them, sorry, that's how they call them, but they've been in Congo for a very long time. And we have the Bantu people. The Bantu people, I don't know if you understand that term, but they make up like 90% of the African population. I mean, the Black African population. And then there are Nilotics people. And those Nilotics people, they're those people from Sudan, tall guys and all that kind people. There are Eritreans, there are Ethiopians, and there are a big part of Rwandese, Burundians, yeah, as well as Kenya. There are many people like that called Nilotics, but that term is not really known so much unless you went to school. But based on the country you live in, they have their own names. Like in Rwanda, they call them Tutsi. In Kenya, they have Masai. Jandarua. They have many. I can't really spell many names because I'm not educated in many groups like that. In Uganda, we have many people like Banyankole. I don't know how to say it in English. So that's what I'm trying to make you understand is that that's the Nilotics people. In Congo, we have the same group, but that group is divided in many tribes. The tribes like the Tutsi of Congo that live in the north of Congo. We have other tribe called Banyamulenge. I am a Munyamulenge, and there is another tribe called Hema. So what creates this division is that the rest of the tribes in Congo want to kick out these three groups because they call them not being Congolese enough. And these three other groups, they fight. Okay, they fight to protect themselves because if you've read about what happened in Congo, the genocide of Rwanda is exactly the same thing. So Rwanda has also three tribes. It has people called Hutu, it has Tutsi, it has Batwa, who are indigenous based on these like in Canada they call them indigenous or First Nation. So those are the three groups. And what created the genocide of Rwanda is that the Hutu were in power back then, and they wanted to kill or kick out the Tutsi completely in the country. So the Tutsi created a movement to protect themselves, but also to save the country from these people. And when the Tutsi took over under the leadership of Paul Kagame, who is still the leader of Rwanda today, then many Hutu fled to Congo, and many others really fled to many other countries in Africa as well as many Western countries. So what I'm trying to say is the same situation that's happening in Congo right now. Other tribes want to do the same thing that was done in Rwanda back in 1994. They either want to kill the Tutsi of Congo or to kick them out of the country because they don't think they're Congolese enough. Now, that's the division, and that's what's been causing problems, whether you look at it from since 1996, the war of 1996, 1998, 2001, 2004, 2007, 2012, 2017. That's been the cause of a lot of wars in Congo. Now, the second aspect to that is the minerals. The minerals is definitely the cause of a lot of atrocities happening in Congo because Congo has a lot of minerals or natural resources, and everyone, whether it's countries or private people, want to get their hands on them. And for them to be able to get them, they have to create chaos in the country. So to create chaos, they fund the rebel groups. Some of those rebel groups are ones who committed the genocide in Rwanda called FDLR. And they are responsible for a lot of deaths in Congo. So there are many tribes, so they fund them, they cause chaos, and then they control the mining areas. So the war in Congo right now, the last time I checked, we had over 200 armed groups in one country. So, and all those rebel groups, they have to eat, they have to pay their soldiers, they have to do their operations, buy weapons or whatever. And to do that, they fight with the government or the citizens of the country to kick them out the mining areas so they can own them. They then dig out the minerals, they sell them, and then they fund whatever they sell them to whoever they want because they control it. So that's the second cause of a lot of wars that happened in Congo. Sorry, that's the second cause of a lot of wars happening in Congo because everyone wants the minerals, whether it's the external forces like the other countries, whether it's Western countries or many other African countries like Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, or Rwanda. I'm sure you've heard about Rwanda many times. So they want to get their hands on those minerals too. And to do that, they fund some rebel groups. And to once those rebel groups have enough weapons, they are able to overthrow the government from those mining areas, and then they control them that means whatever comes out of that there is theirs to sell or to manage. That's the second. And the third is the government. The Congolese government is probably one of the corrupt government in the world. And when you have a weak government like that, it gets easier for anybody to enter the country like they want. Because uh, if you've been following about Congo, you hear about Rwanda crossing over the borders, Rwanda supporting the M23 rebel groups. But if you really think about it, how did Rwanda even cross the borders? Where were you? Because Rwanda is a very small country and a very country that has less that I think close to zero mineral resources. So how can Rwanda cause that kind of problems in a country like Congo? Where were you when they entered the country? Where were you when they're funding those rebel groups? Why can't you uh, be in a good position that you're able to throw any funded rebel groups in your own country? So the problem we have, which is I consider the biggest, is our government not being able to protect its people and its borders, and that's the biggest problem. Right now, the government of Congo is funding many rebel groups because they they are fighting the M23 groups, which is believed to be supported by the government of Rwanda. Now, because the Congo wasn't in a good position to fight them, so they had to seek help from many countries in Africa. Um, then they really did. Like South Africa's army is in Congo right now. Like Burundian army is in Congo right now. Tanzanian army is in Congo right now to help with this conflict. But again, it still wasn't enough to fight the M23 rebel group. Now they had to provide weapons to rebel groups like FDLR. That's already been responsible of killing millions of people. Now they've supplied them with weapons, which is also the cause of many people dying in Congo because they are responsible for a lot of rapes, a lot of wars, a lot of killings that happened in the country. Imagine someone who was doing it before and they were in the jungles and as rebel groups. Now they are working with the government. Imagine having that privilege of working with the government. That person, what can imagine what that person can really do to citizens of the country. They are doing the worst that you can imagine. So they're funding a lot of rebel groups.
I mean, I think that people see in the news, like I feel like the mining and the minerals are, at least to me, like on like casually looking, like on Twitter or on Instagram, you see a lot about what's going on with the mines and the minerals, and you hear a lot about the tragedies of how these guys, a lot of children as well, are like artisanally mining these minerals. There are no excavators, no tractors. They're going with their hands. The conditions are horrible. And you see these companies like Tesla, like Apple, like Samsung benefiting off these like cobalt mines and these products where thousands of humans are, in a sense, being forced into labor. They're forced laborers. You have children, and these people are just there to survive. So can you really kind of dive into like the mines and the conditions of like going into the cobalt mines, these minerals, and how these companies are kind of getting the success of the back end of these Congolese miners?
So the mining areas, as you can, because those are minerals, and many of them have been studied to be causing a lot of diseases, if not well handled. And that's exactly the problems that many citizens in Congo are facing. Once they find that this area has a lot of minerals, their first thing is to kind of figure out a way to kick out the villagers from that area so they can dig out minerals. and they have created these situations for centuries, because Congo isn't having these problems only since 1996. We have been having these problems since colonialism, and this has never stopped. It gets better, and then after a few years, it comes back again. So they have created this poverty problem where people find themselves in that box where they still have to work in those conditions, because that's where they get their food. That's where how they can afford maybe to do like afford food. So, and the reason when you talk about kids being used in those mining areas, it's not just that, it's that all those rebel groups I spoke about earlier, they also use kids. The kids who are not used to mine, they're the kids who are they're the kids who are being soldiers right now, becoming rebel groups. And it's not like they're being there is an application process where you have to apply to become one. No, they are coming in the villages and then pick up any boy that they can find, regardless the age. So when you create that kind of situation or conditions for citizens, is I've been seeing many videos. It's worse than you think. So kids, many pick kids because they work for less, and many mining areas use kids because they do it for almost free. Because how I can take over your stuff is not the same situation. It's not the same way I can take over if someone who is just 5 years old. It's totally different scenarios. And the second thing is that when digging by hands, because they don't have machineries to dig that, they dig small holes. I don't know, you can search that on Google and see the pictures. And someone who is a grown-up can't really fit in those holes, which leaves the option being kids being sent in those small holes, because someone with a big size can't really fit there. So they are using those kids for many reasons. And the reason we are putting, because like the cobalt and the coltan of Congo, Congo holds around 80% of the world's reserve of cobalt. It's the same situation with coltan. And the coltan is the mineral used to create all these phones that we use. And the cobalt is the ones it's a mineral that's used to create the batteries and those kind of stuff. Where Tesla comes in, and in coltan where Apple and Samsung comes in. But in those two companies, again, they still need cobalt, because these phones that we use, they still need batteries inside. So those are very critical minerals that any company in the world, not just those two, need to be able to produce whatever product they sell out to the market.
As we read this and more about this, we thought about Nike. So Nike got publicly shamed because they discovered they were making their shoes and clothes in Asia using child labor.
Yeah.
So how do you publicize? And just to clarify, coltan, which Congo has 2/3 of the world's reserves, when it's refined, it becomes a resistant powder that's used to store electrical charges, which is what they use in all electronics, cell phones, laptops. Cobalt, like you said, it's 70-80% of the world's reserves, used in lithium batteries. And then there's also lithium as the largest deposits in the world. Obviously important in all kinds of electric vehicle batteries. So how do we get the word out? How do we educate, like they did with Nike, to shame these companies, right?
Because these companies aren't going to stop until they're forced to. And they'll hopefully, if they get shamed on social media, they'll hope it dies down. It's really like keeping it alive, the flame and the topic alive, because these people will just go ghost for like a week, and people will go on to the new topic, and these companies will be like, okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say next. Is that this new generation, I feel like it is in the position of having a lot of information than our parents had, because they didn't have this technology. But again, there are also the people who have made everything a joke or have made everything to be in the same importance. It doesn't matter if you're talking about people dying or if they have made everything a trend. They're talking about a stuff because many people are talking about it. And once many people stop talking about it, everyone moves on the next topic. But thinking about it, this was supposed to be something to talk about it until we see change. And that's where people get it wrong. So, and these companies, as I've been saying in many of my videos, um, like many politicians as well, we are not really raising awareness to politicians. We're not really raising awareness to Apple because these people know more than we do. Because there are people who are making these deals. There are people who are buying these product, these minerals. There are people who are using these keys to mine those. They know more information. That I'm sure 100%. That I don't know more. I don't know more than the people who run these companies. They know more than us. So when we are talking about this or making videos about this, it's not really to raise awareness to these people so they can know what's happening in Congo. No, they already know that. We talk about this so we can educate regular people who don't know about this so they can help us fight against what they're doing in Congo, Sudan, or anywhere else in the world, because this is happening everywhere. So we just need to find a way um of like communicating this with people who at least people who care, who are able to do something about it. Then from there we will be able, because we are their customers. That's one. If we speak about it and they don't change anything, we stop buying from them. That will also speak loud than what we are talking about on the videos, because if they're not able to generate the whatever income they generate every year just because of this, that means we're doing something, and that will push them to do something about it. So
let me
yeah.
let me tell you a great hypocrisy that you made me think about right now. So all these environmental activists and they're striving for this green future in the United States, in the West, and in China. Yet we're doing it by destroying the environment and the people in Congo. It's on the backs of these people that we're claiming to get this green future.
You see, when you are facing hunger, when you live in a refugee camp and you don't have something to eat, believe me, you don't care much about clothes to wear. The first thing that's in your thought is, how can I eat? Because yeah, it doesn't make sense for someone who's never been in that situation. But believe me, that's the first thing you think about. How am I gonna survive today? And even if you have a headache, even if you have a rash somewhere, believe me, you're not going to seek medicines, because there isn't even any. You are thinking just about how you are going to feed yourself if you are one person. Imagine someone who had many kids. The first thing you focus on is how to feed them. So I'm saying all this to say that in Congo, we have many problems, many serious problems, that we don't think about environment. How can you think about environment when you are being bombed every day? How can you think about environment when you don't even have something to eat? Because for you to be able to think about many issues that many countries are concerned about, is you need to have peace first. You need to have something to eat first. You need to have something to wear. You need to know that your kids are going to school like any kids. But when you lack those very important things, which are very basic, believe me, many diseases, many issues, whether it's environmental, many problems that the Western is dealing with, like talking about equality, talking about, yes, they're very serious. I'm not talking about that because they're not, but because in Congo we are dealing about other issues that really that are urgent. We really don't have time to think about those other stuff. Not because we don't care, just because it's not the right time to think about them. We have to save ourselves first.
Yeah,
So
And
Yeah,
life in the Amazon is the same way.
yeah,
They're burning the Amazon to get more grazeland and more farmland and to feed their kids and to survive. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
it's not so much different, Stephen, right? So
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and the luxury of I remember you posted a video not too long ago, the luxury of, oh, my bath doesn't work, or my phone didn't charge overnight. That sort of luxury it's a completely different world.
yeah,
And talking about kind of to segue a little bit, Congo hasn't had it easy since the Berlin Conference, where
yep,
Leopold II got to own the Democratic Republic of Congo completely. He was the sole owner. And similar to how it is now with minerals, you mentioned earlier, as we
yep.
talked about it, is that it started with ivory, then they realized rubber was the most like sought after. So they just did some of the most brutal and torturous things to the Congolese to get rubber and to get that. So I'd love to kind of dive into colonization of and King Leopold II, what was going on with Congo, and those kind of brutal. Like I remember, because I think the most visually standing is where they would like cut off the fingers and like cut off limbs if you didn't comply, and it's truly one of those things where you hear about Hitler in school, you hear about Stalin, you hear about Japan, you hear about Mao, you hear a lot of these kind of Western major kind of things. You even hear about like what happened in Serbia with the genocide, but you really don't hear too much about what happened in uh,
In
Congo and
Africa, yeah,
Rwanda and yeah, all over Africa.
yeah,
yeah.
and how is that shaped today? Well, how is that impacted on, from independence in 1960 onward in Congo, right?
Yeah, it has impacted everything. Like the way we live today, even if we didn't have these wars, you can tell me that the Congo, if it wasn't colonized, it would be the same as after colonization, because the first thing about colonization was to kind of destroy your mindset and your cultures, make you feel like you need you need someone else, you need the Western people to be able to succeed. Yeah, you need God in everything, even the smallest decisions that you really don't need God for. Yes, I understand. I'm a Christian and very happy to be one, but I really don't think that God is like making this video today. Really didn't pray before confirming to Nick that I will have this um video. That was my decision. So they kind of really ruined our minds in the case of we really yeah, they have shaped the whole African continent, and it's really going to take a while before we kind of turn that back, and we can really turn back that if that's still going on until today. Because if it ended, maybe the new generation would have had a fresh start and be able to rebuild and recreate the culture, the customs, and also the history and rewrite everything back. But we have never had the chance of rewriting everything, or at least live in peace. So some people really, when you talk about these issues or try to bring up the past, they be like, focus about why do you keep bringing up the past? It's because in Africa, especially in Congo, I live in the past. I always live in the past because I never had the opportunity to live the present as well as to plan for the future. Because right now, imagine 8 million people being displaced, their homes being completely ruined, which means even if today they have peace, they will have to restart over everything, from building the house, from finding where to live, maybe where they were is not safe anymore. They have to find a new place. It's been like that since colonialism. You leave this place, this village, you feel settled, and then the war comes in, it destroys everything. You start over again. Okay, we still live in the past. That's why many people until today in Africa, especially in Congo, still live in those tents houses, like in the made in wood, mud, and grass as a roof. It's because they expect something is going to come and destroy the whatever. If they build a good house, the war will come and destroy it again. So instead of wasting the money, they be like, I'm gonna live in this until peace comes, and peace never came. Yeah, we live in the past because we never had the opportunity to live the present.
So describe more of the legacy of that Belgium.
But I think also to dive into what you're saying, people always will say like, oh, colonialism ended 60, 70 years ago. Africa should be moving on, moving forth. And I think it's such a difficult topic because when you look back through history of even Europe and Asia, these countries of China and France and England were fighting themselves, fighting each other for hundreds and hundreds of years. And when you have colonialism, it completely destroys a country. These colonizers run the country, and they completely like reset the people of Africa. So when they leave, it's basically Africa has to figure out similar steps to how the Europeans did a long time ago. And people are still not understanding that it takes time, that it just because it's happening sooner, that they should be where these other countries are, even though these other countries had a far longer head start than these guys did.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned about the Berlin Conference that happened in 1884. That conference was really because Africa used to be one country.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying it. So yes, we used to have our own wars, like local wars with kings, because we never had a country. We had kings controlling areas, and then they would fight each other for those areas, that kind of stuff, which happened everywhere in the world, because any country or any continent had those kind of stuff. That's what we had in Africa. Then there was the Berlin Conference in 1884. That conference was really not regarding Africans or trying to make peace for Africans. It was all based on the Western countries. And the reason I say this is that once the movement of colonizing the world started, they went in Africa like they went in many other countries around the world. Once they got there, they found out that Africa was very rich in minerals as well as cultures and many other stuff. So now they started fighting each other for those areas, whether the England controls here, France controls here, and then they would start to fight each other for those for those areas. So then the Berlin Conference in 1884 was for their benefits because they wanted now to end the wars between themselves so they can divide Africa and then be like, okay, you friends, you're going to occupy this territory. Don't cross over to this territory because it's occupied by somebody else. That kind of thing. That's when the African continent was divided.
For people to really feel and understand something, they have to almost get a personal example. You almost have to show them a true story. And so as I think about your life as a refugee, were you alone? Were you with any of your brothers and sisters or your family when you spent that time in a camp, didn't know where you were sleeping every night, didn't know what you were eating every day? Tell us about that, a short kind of snapshot of that experience.
So that's a very long story, but
I was always, that's why I said, one day maybe, right?
yeah, absolutely. I really always want to talk about that life, even though it's very dark and also something that many people don't really want to talk about for their own personal reasons. One of them being, let me give you an example. When you have a traumatic situation, I think even the therapist or whatever, they always find a way for you to forget about it or to work around it so you don't have anything to remind you about it because it triggers you and then creates that problem. So many refugees or many people who have been in the war, when they escape that life, they always try to avoid it. Because I really, really understand it because that's the best way to heal and be able to forget about everything that happened and move on with your own life or prepare your future. Very best way to do it. That's why in these Western countries, we have many people, like many immigrants that you see, many of them have that background, but they won't really mention about it. The reason is they really don't want that past to keep following them or talking about it. So, but in my case, I'm not that guy. I want to talk about it. And because um, one of the reasons I want to talk about it is that I really don't want to forget about it because um, that makes me work so hard though, so that my kids never have to live the life that I lived. That's one. And really fuels everything I do, whether it's in business or whether it's anything, because I know how hard it was to not having something to eat, to wishing that you had a good clothes that you can take to church, to wish that you could have a good shoes that you can go out with friends and feel like you are somebody, but never have the access to that. So thinking about that always, it makes me work harder and work makes me really become a better person. And also, the biggest reason is because I want to help refugees. And for me to help refugees is that I really have to remember everything I went through so I can really empathize with the people that I'm helping, and also to better support them and to always feel like whatever I have can really make a big difference. Because if I had someone, and that's just an example, if I had someone who could send me only $50 per month, $50 every month coming in, when I was in a refugee camp, I really wouldn't have had the life that I had. And I'm speaking not just myself, my whole family. Because $50 in Africa is a lot of money. That can feed you for the whole month. Not one person, like three people for the whole month, and you would eat whatever you want. $50. So when I have that experience, I remember that the $50 that they get taken in taxes anyway. If I put that aside and send it to somebody every month, I know for sure that I'm helping more than anybody can understand. When that $50 can only buy me one burger in McDonald's, one burger, and then that's it. So that's one. But to answer the question that you asked about if I was living myself, or yeah, I was always living with my parents in refugee camps because when we fled, it was around 2005, and I was still young. So we fled, my whole family together, and we moved around because the first war that happened, I was only 2 years old. I was born in a province called Katanga in Congo. And then when I was two, there was a war that was their purpose. Their sole purpose was to exterminate my tribe. And we, by the luck of and the grace of God, we survived, and then we escaped. Then we moved to another province called South Kivu, where we lived for many years to come, and until the war came, now we had to move again. So at this point, they were like, let's just change the country because we can't move like that. Because we moved in South Kivu, we arrived and we lived in one area. The wars happened again. After 1 year, we had to move to another location. The wars happened again. Then we went to the mountains where my extended families were living at the time. We lived there for many years. Then the war happened again. My parents were like, let's just go in refugee camps. Now, that's where I lived until I had the opportunity to come here in Canada. And I think if you need the details, like how the life was, I can definitely share that, but maybe in a book because it's a lot. It's a lot.
That'd be good in a book. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But you were talking about the wars, you were mentioning the wars.
yeah,
I mean, back to Rwanda. Rwanda and them, the DRC, have had a lot of tensions, even of late of 2022 with M23, reigniting tensions.
yeah.
But can you kind of describe like where the tensions between Rwanda and the DRC really began? Was it, back during the Congo crisis in the 60s? Was it the first war, the second war, Rwanda genocide? Like when was kind of like the big start between those two countries having problems and tensions?
entered Congo to neutralize FDLR.
Yeah.
And the FDLR to this date, they Rwandese people, and they never hide that. They say we are Rwandese, and one day we will go back to our country. But they live in Congo. They've been there since 1994. And to this day, they're still there, and their sole purpose is still to wage war against the Rwandese government. And Rwanda always knows that. That's why the eastern of Congo will never have peace until the Congolese government finds a way to push the FDLR away from the Rwandan borders. Because at this point, it will solve many problems. One, the Tutsi of Congo won't die, won't be in danger because the threat has been removed. And the second thing, the Rwanda now won't have any reason to enter Congo. And even if they enter, it will be difficult for them to reach where FDLR is. If they put them at the very end of another border of another country, the Rwandese government won't reach there. But at this point, it's not even possible to do that. They would have done it very easily in 1994 or 1995. Before they settle, they tell them, okay, we are going to move you to this place. But since 94, they have been citizens like anybody. They've bought lands, they've built houses, they've bought cattle, they citizens like anybody else. When somebody is like that, even if today the Rwandan government opens the borders and they say anybody who is Rwandese, come home. Many of them won't return because they have already made Congo their home. Okay, they won't return, and that's the first mistake the Congolese government made, to keep FDLR on the border of Rwanda. But they always go over that fact. And if today there is a military or a rebel group on the border of the US in Canada saying that we are going to wage war to the US government anytime, of course, any government would react to that, and they would do anything they can to protect themselves. And that's what Rwanda is doing. And the Congolese, I mean, many understand that, but there are many others who are just, as I was saying, they are just looking on what's happening. They are looking on how many people who died, or they are like, many people need food. We need to collect money for them to eat. But they really don't talk about the cause of everything. They don't look at the FDLR being in Congo. They don't look on the government of Rwanda entering the borders the way they do. They don't look about how we have over 200 rebel groups in one country, how they control the mining areas. They don't talk about our politics being sick and corrupt. They don't talk about those issues, and those are the issues we have. We don't have a Rwanda problem. We wouldn't at least have it if we had a good government.
Actually, there's one question that we wanted to touch on, and it's almost as we talked about colonization, as you move into the 2020s or recent times. Tell us, is China involvement in Congo a new neo-colonization? How would you
their involvement with like the mines and getting minerals
in the government?
Or do you think it's more so, rather than like a neo-colonization, is it more so like a good thing, bad thing? How do you see it?
So any company, any external company mining our minerals is bad, regardless of who is there, because as a country we should have our own companies doing that. So any company, it doesn't matter which company, that's where I want to start. It doesn't matter whether it's from Europe, whether it's from US, Canada, Japan, wherever country, it doesn't matter. If we still have an external company mining our minerals, that's the problem. We should be able to mine our own problem and sell it to external countries. Even mining it, process it ourselves, and then sell the final product. We were supposed to have that. But first of all, the external countries and these big guys won't let us do that, because that means taking away a lot of billions of dollars each month or each year. They can't let us do that. And that's why the problem we have in Africa, not only in Congo, many countries in Africa, they don't have control over their minerals.
Right.
And there is a reason for that. Again, for the China, Chinese, of course, they many, like 15 out of 20 companies that have, the last time I checked, 15 out of 20 companies working in the mining industry in Congo are Chinese. They are. So which means they are also connected. But there is one fact that many people, sometimes I feel, this is not based on any research, it's just the way I feel. I feel like the problems started increasing when the Chinese started acquiring more contracts from DRC, because I think the Western countries, based on the war, or a business war between them and China, they don't want China to take over the world for whatever, because China is a big producer now in any way you look at it, whether it's in food production, whether it's electronics or technology, everywhere. China is taking over, and the Western countries has taken that as a threat. So China being able now to own the biggest producer of coltan, the biggest producer of cobalt, is still, it is a threat to them. They don't want that, which mean also mean doing anything they can to cause any chaos they can to prevent China from from owning. So the problems we have in Congo, they're sometimes more than anybody can explain, because they don't make sense sometimes. Because I'm sure, like 100% in my own opinion, that the Western governments don't really want China to own most of the minings in Congo. And that China already owns them. Now they have to sabotage it or do whatever they can to get them out of it.
And I think something that's important to touch on, we kind of spoke about it, Dad, is the US kind of like, how much interest does the US have in Congo? Because it, like the basic casual stuff, people have heard of like Rumble in the Jungle that took place. And, you know, there's a recent American like led coup that was attempted. And so there's little things that American has ties. I mean, there's even, I'm sure you could touch on as well, as America has had kind of ties with Rwanda. So there's been like protests and of the embassies. So it's kind of the question is, what does the US, like what can the US do better in support of Congo and like having a stake in what's going on?
So saying this to someone who is an American is not going to sound wrong, but I feel like US is supposed to do everything different, not just one thing, everything. I mean, even if you look at it from the citizens of the US, I think it's not right sending 20 billions to Ukraine when you still have people sleeping on the streets. Your people are supposed to be the first priority. But again, and when you look at it from the external point of view, how they are able to still traumatize any country that they want, they're still able to get whatever they want. It doesn't matter what they do. Like in 1960, that's when we had our independence. I mean, Congo. I really don't consider it as an independence, because we've never had any independence. But that's what we have in the books. So we had an independence in 1960. And the person who got us the independence was called Patrice Lumumba. Maybe you've heard of that name. So that person was assassinated by CIA and also the Belgian government. Why would you do that to somebody who is just trying to do good for their own countries? So they've killed Sankara. Sankara is also someone who brought independence to Burkina Faso. They've killed many of our heroes. If you look at it, except Mandela, Nelson Mandela is the one who fought for the independence of their country in Africa and never got killed for it. But the rest of if you see a country celebrating for their independence, many of them were killed by the same US, by the same England, by the same Western countries. So in 1996, in 1960, we had our independence, and then there was an election where they elected Lumumba as our first elected first prime minister, but he was a minister instead of a president. But he was then later killed, and then they put their puppet there called Kasavubu, who led the country for the next 5 years until 1965. And when he wasn't providing them with what they want, they also supported Mobutu, the dictator Mobutu, who led the country for the next 32 years, since 1965 to 1997, when he was removed by Laurent Desire Kabila, supported by Rwanda. About 1996, that's when Rwanda entered the DRC for the sole purpose of neutralizing FDLR. But the entered there under this president, this next president, they were working together to remove Mobutu, but that never gets spoken about, because Congolese people always find a way to uh, uh, talk about some other stuff without really acknowledging the reason we are here today. But again, they put Kasavubu there after killing our hero. Then Kasavubu wasn't providing them what they want. They supported Mobutu, who they put there, and then he was a dictator. He wasn't even paying the national soldiers of the country. And back then, Mobutu gave them access to everything until he was also removed from power. So the US government, of course, has everything, especially in Congo, because Congo is different from many other countries in Africa. Many other countries like Burkina Faso has gold, or maybe uranium, or those kind of minerals, but Congo has every mineral that you need. Every mineral, not just uranium. If you need uranium, you'll find it in Congo. You need oil, you will find it in Congo. You need gold, it's there. You need diamond, like the whole province of Katanga. It is probably the third, I think, or in the top 10 biggest producer of diamond in the world. So any mineral you need, Congo can provide it. So of course, US has to be involved.
So we just have a few closing questions. One
Like
is
rapid fire kind of thing.
yeah, but yeah, so don't have to answer long. But one thing we're curious about is tell us when you tell people where you're from, what's their reaction?
Me personally, it's different from many other Congolese, because many people, when they meet me, the first reaction they're like, "Are you from Somali?" Because that's the first thing they say. "Are you from Somalia?" I'd be like, "From Congo." From Congo, because they know Congo, in other way, because they will never accept that. Yes, I'm from Congo, and I'm always proud to say that, not just because they kind of put me in other people's features, but because it makes me feel better. That way I can represent my tribe, my community, the world, they always have big reaction, because they don't think a skinny guy with some other, anyway. I think you may have also, if you've been around Somalia, or you may have the same reaction when you see me first.
Yeah. And then one question I have is where are some of the big like Congo areas is like throughout like outside of Africa? Like what's some of the big like cities and populations of Congolese people?
Yeah, in North America, are there pockets of
yeah, because like Minnesota has a ton of Somali. So it's like what's one of the big like Congolese areas across North America, Europe?
Oh, you mean outside of Congo?
Yeah, outside of Congo, outside of Africa.
I would say Belgium. I would say Belgium,
yeah.
France, and the reason I say this is that we were colonized by Belgium.
Yeah.
And there's always that kind of connection between these two countries, where they have more access to this country than others. It's like the people who were colonized by Portuguese, even today, those countries still speak Portuguese, and so Congo speaks French. Their big language is French, and Belgium speak French. And the second, I would pick France, for the same reasons of French-speaking countries. And the third, I would definitely go with Canada and US. Yeah.
Tell us one thing that you're most proud of being Congolese. I mean, what tell us one thing.
So me personally, being I am proud of many things, but it always comes to my tribe because I have a unique culture and I have a unique tribe, but I also am very proud of the Congolese diversity where you live in one side of see you may live in this village and after only like 15 kilometers you find yourself in another village from another tribe where there is totally different from yourself, like they speak the different language, they have different cultures, they eat different foods, totally different. You feel like you are in a new country. Imagine having over four around 500 tribes in one country with this with all of them having different tribes and cultures and all that. So yeah, that yeah the diversity of the DRC in languages, in culture, and in many other things. Yes, as I
It's
said,
another,
yeah.
it's another curse and a blessing, right?
I know, yeah,
As you talked
absolutely,
about it.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
All right, we're going to close. Nick and I we're going to say one or two words, and we want to know the first thing that comes into your mind. It's a little bit of a game, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to ask you, we're going to tell you something, and so for example, if we say to you Africa, what's a quick phrase or one or two things that come to your mind?
Food.
How about Canada?
Winter.
How about Sudan?
Sudan, tall people.
And Rwanda?
Paul Kagame, absolutely.
Colonialism?
Araba, I don't know. Yeah, Araba.
And government corruption?
Congolese government.
Okay, it took us a while to find somebody. Yannick Bolasie.
I don't know that person.
He's a soccer player.
I knew he wouldn't know. He was so.
I was trying to find
adamant.
the most famous football player from Congo.
I know one that was called Makelele, and he really got the DRC to reach, I think, to yeah. I don't know that person. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I knew he wouldn't.
Yeah.
I knew it.
I know Nick
Yeah.
said. All right, and how about mineral wealth, cobalt and coltan?
iPhone and Tesla.
And here's the last one for you. Your mother and father.
Sarah and Bizuru, that's the names of them.
And what do you when you think of them, what's your first thing you think of?
I smile because they've done too much for me. They've carried me through wars. They've had many ways to feed me through refugee life. Yeah, there is that appreciation of having a parent, but mine is through the roof because they've done more than any other regular parent does to their kids. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Canada?
I've been here since 2017, so 7 years. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on everything you've accomplished, and so much more is ahead of you in life. So we're very fortunate to talk with you.
Thank you so much, because I mean, I really appreciated when you got back to me and that you were willing to do this, and your growth has been amazing. I mean, when I first messaged you, you had like 3,000, 4,000 followers, and now you continue to show that your voice is really important and what you're doing is really valuable.
So
yeah, thank you very much.
So we're thinking, so we want to post something. Should we put the UN's refugee as a donation, or can you send Nick your
what's your best recommendation
organization
for a donation for putting something?
So I would recommend the company that I'm part of, because I have control of the donations and where they go. But if you need another company, I would definitely go with the UNHCR, because that company really has me, because it's been my government for over a decade. So I love that company. Yeah.